Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more r/mi the butthole, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's dive straight into today's first story. And this story comes from Scared of Their Love, titled Am I the Arsehole for Following My 42 Male Wife 27 Female Around for an Evening? The title sounds extreme, but here are the details. My wife and I have been together for 5 years. I love her so much that it pains me to write this. The thing is, I was the sole earner for a while and I was happy to provide. I am a software developer at a local startup that has tripled in employees and has gone exponential in revenue. We're not having kids, so my wife got bored of being home and doing nothing. So she got a job at a law firm as a paralegal. Enter this attorney, who I'll call Brandon. My wife started to bring him up quite a bit. You know when your wife starts talking about something, drops it, and then brings it up a few minutes or hours later, like there was no gap. My wife does that with stories about him. I searched through her Facebook friends list one day for Brandon and saw that they had connected. Okay. Then my wife starts going to work happy hours and I'm seeing pictures of the guy on her timeline. In most of the pictures she's positioned next to him, holding a drink. Okay. I have gained considerable weight since joining the startup. There is free food provided to us nearly every day. My wife has maintained a really low weight and looks as beautiful as she did at 22. Brandon is more like how I used to be weight-wise. However, I believe I make more money than he does. So here it goes. I take off work on Friday, as my team is nearing the end of our project. I wait for my wife to leave the firm and I see her walking out with Brandon. They get in my wife's car, purchased on my dime, and I follow them for a bit. They go to a local dive bar and it turns out all of her co-workers are there. I see them entering. I wait for hours and everyone eventually leaves. My wife leaves last with Brandon and she takes him home. I don't see any physical contact as he exits the vehicle to go inside his apartment building. At this point, I'm sick. I'm gutted. I wait at home for my wife and confront her about Brandon. She went insane basically, threatening to end the marriage because I stalked her. She told me she is always the dedicated driver for happy hour because she doesn't drink much, which is true, but she didn't address my greater concerns. Am I the arsehole? Now there was a few sentences that jumped out to me right away whilst reading this, and it all comes down to insecurities in the end, I think. You talk about how you've gained a considerable amount of weight because the food is free, and you say Brandon is how you used to look weight-wise, but you make more than he does. Like, what the hell? You went to basically following your own wife and then showing your lack of trust in her by calling her out when she got home, which has got to be incredibly hurtful to your wife, hasn't it? I think there was just a better way you could have brought this up totally. You went probably about it the worst way possible. Feeling insecure is an okay thing. It's a perfectly valid human feeling. But you got to bring it up with your wife and talk to her about it and how you're feeling rather than, basically throwing accusations her way. But before we get into that update, Murderous Budgie says you're the arsehole. She's not allowed to hang out with co-workers. You observed nothing but normal friendly stuff and yet you confronted her. This marriage is doomed. Sorry, my dude. Bob's Big Bob says, you're the arsehole. I guess it's easy to be insecure when you're an overweight old married guy to a young hottie. Good luck, pal. Wiggle Butt Biscuit says, you're the arsehole. So she made a friend at work, told you about him honestly, and then you decided to stalk her. When you saw her go to a work happy hour and then drop him off at his house, perfectly innocently. You are a lunatic and I hope she leaves you ASAP. That's not even beginning to get into all the sexist bullshit thrown in throughout your post. Short and Sweet says you're the arsehole for not having an honest conversation with her like an adult instead of creepily following her. Turns out she had done nothing wrong and you're just jealous and insecure. Post-X Humanity says and quotes, Brandon is more like how I used to be weight-wise, however I believe I make more money than he does. Then goes on to say, insecure much dude, you're 100% the arsehole here. You don't trust your wife but rather than bringing up your concerns with her and having a conversation like adults. You are 15 years older than her, a little maturity shouldn't be too much to ask. You spent hours following her. The fact that you thought this was your best option strongly suggests that this is a doomed relationship. You're the arsehole. And one more from Azurina, who says, "You're the arsehole. This is way over the line and your wife must be devastated by the obvious lack of trust you have in her. This was all so bad, especially this part," in quotes. "Brandon is more like how I used to be weight-wise, however I think I make more money than him." Then goes on to say, "Yikes. It doesn't seem like you have a very high opinion of your wife or your relationship if you're thinking the thing so shallow. She has made a new work friend, and yes, he's only a friend, and that must be wonderful after all a year spent at home. Be happy for her, apologise, get to couples therapy, and lay off of her." And now we're going to move on to that update to see what that says. Here is the link to the original post, and if you don't want to read it, here's the summary. "I believe my wife to be having an affair with a co-worker who had repeatedly appeared in her pictures and conversations, so one happy hour I followed her, even though I had seen nothing definitive. I confronted her about the issue and she threatened to end things with me. Believe it or not, I listened to your advice. I received extensive advice from both sides. Publicly, everyone agreed I was at fault. In my direct messages, many fervently believed me to be in the right. Regardless, I sat down and talked to my wife about my insecurities concerning a co-worker, Brandon. I told her I did not feel as attractive as Brandon and worried that as I was getting older, her interest in me was waning. I also asked her if she felt financially stable in the relationship. I apologized for following her and told her I would never do it again. She told me several things. First, that she was offended I did not trust her. Second, that she did suspect Brandon had feelings for her based on some of his interactions and comments. Third, that she sometimes felt isolated by my work and never felt motivated one way or the other by my income. The thing about programming is it is hard to explain my work to someone who does not program. She also told me my physical appearance and aging had no impact on her feelings towards me. She reaffirmed that she loved me and would never throw away our marriage for a divorced co-worker. So, what of our future? I asked her if she still wanted to be with me or if she could see a future with me after I had followed her. She joked that she would forgive me after drinking a few cocktails at a tropical resort. She told me that in addition to the stalking, the cocktails would also help her forget about all my past rants about various programming languages, Java especially. I haven't told her yet, but I plan to surprise her with an all-inclusive package to the Maldives, or some other island young women enjoy that I have never heard of until researching. Thank you to the kind user who helped me figure out how to create this update post. Now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to another story. And our next story comes from Normal Respond 7656, who asks, "Am I the asshole for telling my coworker that my personal out-of-work activities are as important as her kids? Trying to keep this short. I'm a married 36-year-old woman with no plans to have kids. I recently had an issue with a coworker where a boss emailed her and I to ask if one of us could cover an evening call. It's a 9-to-5 job, but we occasionally have evening calls due to collaborators in different time zones. The coworker asked me to do it because her son had a soccer game, but I said that I can't do it because I had a volleyball game. She said that I should do it because the soccer game is for her kid and my volleyball game is just for me. I said that respectfully my outside of work commitments are not less important than hers because I don't have children, and that she should take the call because I had taken the last two. She scoffed at me, and I know that other people around the office have been gossiping about me since and saying that it was super messed up that I made her miss her kid's soccer game. I think that it's incredibly important to support working mothers. I am always more than happy to accommodate the schedules of mothers I work with when it doesn't cause a significant inconvenience to me. For example, some co-workers leave early to pick up their kids. Our company is great about that, and I'm happy to work project schedules around that. I also would have taken that call if I hadn't had a conflict, as long as it wasn't a pattern of me taking significantly more evening calls. I talked to a friend about this, who is a mother, and she said that I should have just done it because people who don't have kids really should have more empathy for working parents, and we don't understand how hard it is. I said respectfully that I do understand that working mothers have much more stressful lives than I do, which is why I decided not to be a mother. I also said that I can have respect and empathy for working mothers and also value my time and choices equally. She similarly scoffed and said that I don't understand. Am I the arsehole? Now firstly, I hate the social pressure that we feel where we have to explain what our prior commitments are, that you explain that you have a volleyball game, no, I'm doing something else this evening, should have been enough. And I'm very much guilty of this myself as well. and something that I certainly need to work on. Like when my dad was going through all his time and, I had to get away from work early and take various days off. Although my company didn't expect me to, but I felt a pressure to explain to my co-workers that I'm leaving early for X reason because I didn't want them thinking negatively of me and stuff like that. But there's no way you're going to be the arsehole in this situation, and your friend is totally wrong that you should have more empathy towards mothers. And you do have empathy towards mothers. I think we all have some to a certain point, but not when it's detrimental to your own life. They chose to have children. You didn't. You made that choice for yourself. That doesn't mean you should be every parent's beck and call because you didn't have children. That just makes no sense. And it's not like OP was totally negative in this situation either. They said in a normal situation they would have done it, and they've done the previous last two. And then it just becomes a pattern after a while, doesn't it? That they can rely on you every single time they need this doing. But OP does seem like they got their head screwed on in this, and will just say no when needed. But you're absolutely not the arsehole to me. But Slugdirt says, not the arsehole. I love it when people say, but you don't have a family, as though people were hatched from pods. Having children isn't a free pass to get other things you'd prefer not to do. MDSN Bell says, not the arsehole at all. You took the last two calls. That is a reason to say no. Look at you with a shiny spine. Laughing is Better says, not the arsehole. It should be a rotation. Having kids is not a get out of crummy work free card. Sugar in the Boot says, not the arsehole, but your mistake here is telling her what your personal business was. That's private, because once you put it out there, it's up for community judgment. Next time, less said, the better. And Time You Won says, not the arsehole, but it wasn't smart to say what your conflict was. You didn't have to justify it. All you had to say was, sorry, I really can't. I have a prior commitment. Now I know these social pressures like this, these work pressures can be quite common in many workplaces. Have you ever experienced this before, and how did you handle it? How did you deal with it? As I said before, I've been guilty of telling people, what I've been doing. Like, I'm doing this, so I can't help you with that, I'm afraid. But how would you deal with it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to another story. And our next story comes from Upper AD 46567, who says, am I the arsehole for having my husband's friend kicked out for bringing his 4 kids to my child-free wedding? My husband 30 and I 30 got married 2 weeks ago. We decided on a child-free wedding due to the venue choice, food choice, alcohol, location, etc. We include this rule in every invitation, including the one my husband's bestie, Leo 35, who is a widower with 4 kids. Leo complained to my husband about the rule, but that is that. At the wedding, my husband said he was worried his friend Leo may not come since I refused to let him bring his kids. But almost an hour into the wedding, we start hearing noise from a distance. We look closely and see Leo standing there with his 4 kids, dressed nicely. He was arguing with the staff about the kids not being allowed. I felt horrible because the staff was drilling that this is an adult-only wedding and that the kids need to leave. But Leo kept arguing and went as far as to yell out my husband's name, telling him to come tell the staff off since it's his wedding. I was so upset and embarrassed, but I kept my composure and went over to talk to Leo. I told him to either get the kids somewhere else and come back or just leave. He acted offended, saying that this is his best friend's wedding and he was invited to it. I said I was sorry, but the rule is followed by everybody, and everybody should respect that. He argued about how he wasn't just a random guest, but was family, but I said it still applies. I insisted he make his choice, but he doubled down, talking about how he couldn't find a babysitter and how he shouldn't have to miss his best friend's wedding. I had the staff escort him and his kids out after he kept pushing, which led to some of my husband's friends to complain, saying Leo has special circumstances because he's a widower and it's essentially my fault for not providing babysitting options for guests. Wedding went on after that, but my husband was angry. He said this is his best friend and that I just caused to miss his wedding. He said Leo stopped answering his calls till today and respond to his messages because of what I did. Now my husband believes that I've just ruined his relationship with his friend, when I could have just made an exception for him and the kids since they were there already. Am I the arsehole? Edit. Just so you know, my husband was on board with this rule, but wanted to make an exception for his friend and his friend only. My family and friends would have felt deeply hurt if I had said yes. Now, I'm glad you cleared that bit up in the edit, because that was my only concern as I was reading through this. I thought, oh, it sounds like it was almost railroaded and it was only a one-sided choice in some ways. But I'm glad you did clear that up. And in that case, it's absolutely a not the arsehole to me. Like you said, if you made an exception for just one person, then other people could be hurt and it just causes more drama. And that's the last thing you want on your wedding day. And I can't get into the mindset of someone. I know Leo's probably gone through an absolutely awful time recently, and I got empathy with that, don't get me wrong, and I feel sorry for those children to be dragged along to that wedding as well, to be put on the spot like that and then to be turned away. Although some weddings can be boring for children, if they were probably very excited to be there and then to be turned away, it's got to be disappointing, it's got to be sad. But Leo made that choice. I couldn't imagine myself, regardless of my situation, someone invited me to a wedding, they said you can't bring kids along. If I had no other options, I just wouldn't go. I can't imagine turning up at the wedding with kids and potentially causing a scene at someone's wedding. That would be devastating. Just for myself, if I was the one who's to turn up. So Leo knew the rules. You know the rules, so do I. Sorry. And decided to turn up anyway. Not the arsehole at all. But Walk Schnauzer says, not the arsehole in the least. The rule was well telegraphed in advance. Leo just showing up was absolutely an arsehole move. I'm concerned that given his reaction, perhaps your husband encouraged Leo to just show up without your knowledge. If that is true, he is also an arsehole. And that's a very good point. What if the husband did say this? Well, obviously, we don't know if the husband did do it, but imagine he did, then yeah, it would make him the arsehole as well. To both his wife and to Leo and his children. But NGDG says, you don't have a Leo problem, you have a husband problem. If he wasn't on board with no kids, the time to say so was before the invitations were sent. Imagine all the anger and hurt from others if you had let Leo's kids stay. I suppose one compromise would have been to let them stay through the ceremony only, but that still would have created hard feelings amongst others. You are not the arsehole, your husband and Leo are both arseholes. No Jellyfish 1208 says not the arsehole. If you two decided to have a child-free wedding, it's kind of nonsense and somewhat disrespectful to other guests to make last-minute exceptions. Leo knew the rules. I'm not doing it again. He could prepare or not attend. Also, your husband is blaming the wrong person. If your wedding was to be child-free, I am not sure what he expected. I'm just here for am I the arsehole says not the arsehole. I think what makes Leo the arsehole most is that he didn't reach out before the wedding and say, hey look, I'm really struggling to find a babysitter. Is it okay if I bring the kids? I know this is really late notice for catering, seating, etc. But I don't think he really tried to find childcare. I think he intended to rock up last minute and put you in an incredibly awkward position he didn't think you'd say no to. But you stood your ground and he got kicked out for not following the rules. This is all on him. Greek American Dom says not the arsehole. The person at fault here is Leo. I'm a single dad. I have just one, but figuring out sitting is a basic life skill. One he should have solved long ago. Your husband is also misplacing his anger. Leo set up the situation, not you. If your husband felt this strongly, he should have stood up for the exception before the wedding, not at the reception. Almake476 says, not the arsehole. How many people at the wedding would have been resentful if you gave an exception to Leo, and they had to put time, effort and money into respecting your rules? It might have been better if your husband had been involved in dealing with the situation. Where was he, by the way? But Leo created the problem entirely on his own, to which the Firth replies that one saying, my nephew got married a few years ago, child-free wedding that I had to travel to. I really wanted to bring my son, who was around 12. I called nephew hoping for some leeway since he wasn't a little kid, but no. He told me no kids period except his two younger brothers, who are around the same age as my son. Okay, fine, I make arrangements and attend the wedding without my son. Reception starts and his aunt and his mum's side show up, with all their kids. The reception was overrun with 5 to 7 kids, hard to keep track, all under the age of 10. I was so pissed. Even worse, all they had for food was a dessert bar. Would have been nice to know that ahead of time, and everything was gone in no time. Guess who got most of it? Spicy family drama right at the end there. But now, what would you do if you was in the bride's position in this story? You know, you've had a child-free wedding and then someone turns up at the wedding And now you're stuck in a position where you've got to confront this, or he's going to be in there with a kid. So you've got to go up and potentially make a scene in front of everyone, in front of all your guests. A couple of people guilting you because, you know, this person is a widower and has 4 children with no other options, although they do. How would you deal with that situation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, a huge thank you for spending 20 to 30 minutes with me every day getting involved in the channel. You know it means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for your love, your time and support, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.